Let me tell y'all, if you want to be a leader, be a leader. If you want to be a follower, be a follower.
Take your time.
Here's my piece of advice: be yourself. Don't change who you are for anybody. All right. And at the same time, make sure that you are always striving to be your best self for those that you are serving. Come on, I'm ready.
So I'm gonna jump right into it, and I'm gonna ask you your name first. What's your name?
What's up, chat? Um, my name is Arthur St. Cyr.
And where you're
Yep, that's
from? What is your biography? Let them know like your elevator pitch, all that.
um my name is Arthur St. Cyr. I am from Hollywood, Florida. Um, I am a graduate of Florida State University, graduated in 2017 with my bachelor's in family and child sciences. He was about to
Mhm.
sneeze. All right, run that back, Turbo. Go ahead. Let's go again. Get your sneeze out.
We know your name, but what's your biography? Like your elevator pitch, everything about yourself, just so they will know.
Okay, so my name is Arthur. I'm from Hollywood, Florida. I am a graduate of Florida State University. I graduated in 2017 with my bachelor's in family and child sciences. I then got my MBA from Florida Memorial University in 2022, and I am currently getting my EDD in Education Leadership and Innovation,
Just EDD,
uh, educational doctorate.
EDD Monte.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm gonna jump right into the talking points as well. There's gonna be a couple of them that I'm gonna try to focus on. And so I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions and walk you through a little bit of like kind of the coursework that we did over the semester. Not the coursework, but like some of the topics that we talked about over the semester regarding Black male leadership, because that is why you're here, of course. And I'm just kind of gonna get your understanding, and how you describe Black male leadership in a way. So, starting from the bare bones basics, during our week one of the class, we talked about the introduction to leadership. So, we had questions like, what is leadership and how do a lot of people kind of explain that? And the first resource that we had to read was our Dugan chapter. I like saying that, Dugan. But before I go further into talking about that, I asked you to bring an item that represents Black male leadership for the podcast. You want to show that off and talk about that a little bit?
All right. So my item that I decided to bring is my trophy um, that a couple of my students gave me. And it says, to the best director, mentor, guidance counselor, friend ever. Um, and literally, this is the only thing that I can find. Well, there's a bunch of things that my students had given me over the years, but this one kind of stands out because even with wearing all these hats, as a leader, I was still able to show up for my students every day. Um, and so much so that they felt the need to create an award for just little old me. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I like that. No, whenever I had to do that in class, I was put on the spot. I was really scared, so I had to make something up. I had pins on my backpack. They all fell off, but they were my graduation pins, and I just had to like take that and run with it because I was blindsided whenever he started
Mm.
that activity. But anyways, in the Deacon chapter, they talked about topics like what is leadership? Are leaders born or are leaders, made into leaders? And then it talks a little bit more about like leadership or management and stuff like that. So I want to know before I go further into talking about it, what is your understanding? Like, what is leadership to you?
So leadership to me is uh in the most simplest sense of the word is being a leader. So being someone who people can follow, look to for guidance, um, just an all-around person that's there every day, there when you need them, and willing to show up when you don't need them.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of essentially what the top of the chapter kind of distinguished. And it also talked about how leadership is a process. Like it's not like a skill, it's not like a trait, like it's a process that people do. But leadership also does encompass a group of skills in a way, like what makes someone a good leader versus not a good leader, or how someone is a better leader than another person. But that's all something we're going to talk about later. But kind of a part of that chapter was, like I said, asking if leaders are born or if they're made. What do you think? Do you think people are just inherently born as leaders, or do you think that they become leaders over time?
So I think leadership and personality kind of go hand in hand. So certain personality types, they're just natural born leaders. You know, people want to follow them. They're charismatic. They are born to lead. Now, on the other hand, people can also be developed into leaders because it's a skill set. So if you're able to encompass those skills and hone them in, you can become a leader. So just because you're not born a leader doesn't mean you can't become a leader.
Right, right, right. I like that. So people have the potential. Anybody can be a leader as long as they, put their
Mm-hmm.
mind to it in a way. And then
Put
on
their
top
mind
of
to it.
that, on top of that, another part of the chapter that I picked out that I kind of felt was the most important is they went on to like talk about the distinguishing features between leadership versus management, because that's something that people can misconstrue a lot. And they went on to talk kind of about how um, a lot of people that people will commonly say that leadership is authority or focused on efficiency, but that's whenever it gets kind of confusing of how they can get intertwined with each other in a way. But so I want to know, since you are in the work field and you work in a workplace, of course, how do you distinguish management from leadership? That's a hard question.
That is definitely a hard question. So one thing I will say, not all managers are good leaders. Um, some managers simply are in place because they have tenure or they know somebody, but not all managers are good leaders. Now, distinguishing between the two, um, yeah, that's a difficult question. It's how do you distinguish between the two? Because we know what leadership is, and when you think of management, it would typically, in the most basic sense of the word, would be someone who's in a position of leadership.
Right, right, right,
If you're
right. And
thinking
that's
organizationally,
why it's complicated.
yeah. So, I mean, distinguishing between the two, I don't think there's really much to distinguish. If you're talking about management, you're typically talking about leadership in
Okay.
whatever company, organization, institution that you're in. Now, you can distinguish between good leaders and bad leaders, or good management versus bad management, um, but not necessarily the two, because I think they kind of go hand in hand.
But then we're gonna kind of segue just a little bit. I know I had you describe like what your definition of leadership was. But moving on from that, how do you define black male leadership specifically?
Black male leadership. So for black males, and leadership, it's it's different. It's definitely different. It's black people in positions of leadership, but at the same time, you know, keeping in mind where they came from and being able to, be authoritative. Well, not all leaders have to be authoritative, but leading with integrity and pride, and also giving back to those who can relate to your experiences and where you came from.
Okay. And kind of move on from that. What would you say like that you do in your community as a black male leader? Like how do you impact your community that way? And what do you think your biggest impact on your community has been in that way?
So right now I'm not currently doing anything in the community. Um, Kind of in between locations at the moment. But previously, so in Mississippi, when I was in Mississippi, I was coaching basketball. I was also hosting events for the institution I was working for, within the community, through the program I was in charge of. And then I was also a teacher for the kids' church. So within the classroom, I was helping with the Sunday school for the kids. Now, biggest impact I would say is coaching basketball. Um, so within our community, historically, sports has been a way for black males to express themselves or using it as a way to get out of their current situation to better themselves. Now, a lot of these kids, they don't have father figures. So, as a coach, even if I'm not teaching you something about basketball, I can teach you something about life that you can carry with you, whether you're playing basketball or you're at home or you're at school, that can impact you, have a positive impact on you and your character, behavior, whatever it is that you're doing.
Good answer, Steve. I like that. It actually answered one of the questions I was going to ask you later. So remind me that because I feel like that's going to make me stumble. But
I probably won't.
but moving on from that, I'm gonna kind of segue that into what it takes to be a leader and the important characteristics of leadership. So just moving right on to the next week of class we had. In week two, we really talked, like we dove into the identity, the capacity, and the efficacy of a leader, like those three pillars that make up a good, an efficient leader, I would say. I don't know about good, I would say efficient, just because I think that word's a little bit better. But so for this, we used a resource engaging in the leadership process, colon, identity, capacity, and efficacy for college students. But this really does apply to everybody in a way. So, like I said, we have the three pillars of leadership were identity, capacity, and efficacy, like I said. But it was really hard at first to distinguish between them, but pretty much what I was able to take away from all the lessons was that identity is kind of who you are as a leader. So it's like your self-understanding, it's seeing yourself as being able to lead in the first place. And it kind of encompasses like your values, your motives, and who you want to become in a way. So it's kind of like who you know you are and what you stand for in a way. So knowing that information, how has your identity as a black man shaped the way that you lead?
Uh, Thank you for that question, Steve. Uh, so my identity as a black man guide my leadership principles. This is a great question. Thank you. Um, so starting with identity, right? I identify as a black male. I identify as a first generation college student. I identify as, well, graduate. I identify as a first generation, no, first generation Haitian American, right? So there are a lot of things that play into my identity and have formed and shaped who I am. So bringing that into leadership, I'm constantly carrying the different values and principles from my mesh of an identity to help me be an effective leader. So again, it always comes back to leading leading with your heart, right? Um, my heart gets broke so many times because I'm always leading with my heart, but it's just the way that I lead. I'm always leading with my heart. I'm always trying to reach the students who, or reach anyone who's struggling. I'm always going above and beyond. I'm always sacrificing myself
Mhm.
as a leader, for the betterment of the institution. I will always do that. I've seen my parents do it. I've seen a lot of my mentors do it. So that's all has shaped my identity and eventually spilt over into my leadership style.
Okay. And to build off of that, I know you talked about some of like your cultural influences for who you are as a leader or that have shaped the way that you lead. But what would you say some of your experiences from your child? What would you say some of the experiences from your childhood, if you can kind of recount on any of those? How have any of those influenced your leadership style today?
So one thing that I can remember, um, so I had a friend who lived up the street from me, and I told him I would help him do something. And I was laying on the couch watching TV, and I did not feel like getting up to go help him. So I decided I wasn't going to go. So he came to the house and he was knocking on the door. And I told my dad, I'm not here. Tell him I'm not here. So dad told him I wasn't
Wow.
there. And then he sat down next to me and he said, Hey, I get that you didn't want to do it, but you shouldn't have told him that you would. And one thing that he said that sticks with me to this day, if you're going to tell somebody that you're going to do something, do it. If you
Right.
promise something to somebody, do it. Um, keep your promises because as a black man, your promises is all you got. So that I kind of carried into my leadership style. So if I tell my team or whoever it is that I'm working with that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I tell them, hey, we're going to work on this project and I will take on most of it, or I'll take on this section, I'm going to take on that section. If I say I'm going to show up and help them, then I will show up and help them. Uh, so yeah, that is how my cultural identity has shaped my leadership.
Right. Yeah, I like that answer. It's like 1,000 people in here. Anyway, anyway, yeah, so we're gonna segue right off of that. I really like that answer. It's very thorough, it's very honest, very you know, yeah, it was like that. But so it sounds like it was a very influential experience, but I want to know on top of that, like more of your influences for like yourself as a black male leader. What kind of do you have any like kind of shows or podcasts, books, movies, any kind of media that has been impactful for you as a black male leader?
Definitely not a book because I don't like to read. Um,
Amen.
I don't know what it is. I'll get halfway through a book and say, "Okay, I'm done," and I'll never pick it up again. So definitely not a book. But if I had to choose a podcast, I would say so something like the Pivot podcast, right? So
Okay.
it's a bunch of black men sit around, they talk about sports, but they go beyond sports. They've created a vulnerable space where black men are able to share their thoughts and their feelings and talk about different things and be vulnerable with each other, which is something that as a black male, something that we don't grow up with, being vulnerable, sharing our thoughts and our feelings. So definitely that's one of the podcasts that I do like to enjoy when I can. Um, yeah, that's I would say the only thing. Not the
Okay.
only, but there's a couple more. Just can't remember them right now.
Oh yeah, it's late. So
You can make a
have
great doctor.
have you ever faced resistance or pushback when trying to lead in your community? It could be based on your identity as a leader, your identity as a person, your cultural identity, any of that. Have you faced pushback when you were trying to lead in your community? And if so, how did you handle it?
So yes, there has been an instance where I faced pushback within. So in one of my previous roles, so one of the things I like to do is I like to thank people, right? Especially
Hmm.
like different departments, professors, staff, whoever it is. I like to send thank you notes. If I can use you as a resource to help a student, I will make that student go back to you and with a thank you card to thank you for your time and efforts in helping them with whatever it is. So there was a point in time where I started an initiative and I said, okay, we're going to do thank you cards for all the support staff. So financial aid, the registrar, admissions, anyone who helped us through our current cycle.
Hmm.
And everyone was like, nah, we're not going to do that. That's their job. And I was like, yes, it is their job. However, how many times have you called them and they dropped what they were doing to help you with the student you needed help with? That's not their
Exactly.
job. That's not their job. And as a leader, we should be thanking them for going above and beyond their job duties, for taking time out of their busy schedule to help us with what we're doing. So to circumvent that, I took it upon myself to do it my out of my pocket. So I used my money to buy thank you cards and little goodie bags. And me and my students had a bag stuffing party
Hmm.
slash study session. And then the next day they gave out all the thank you cards and took pictures with everyone.
I like that. I'm gonna steal that someday. I am. And then one more for that pillar of leadership. What is a value or a principle that you refuse to compromise as a leader? Like something that you will never let go of, something that really keeps you true to yourself.
Oof, loaded.
Take your time.
Let's see, something that I would never let go of. What is something that I would never let go of as a leader, as part of my leadership style? So first of all, I refuse, like absolutely will never ever let go of is developing others, right? So
Okay.
pushing others to achieve their goals, their dreams, whatever it is. So it might not be academic, it might be personal, so whatever that looks like for you. So there's I used to tell my students in a previous experience, I don't care what your teacher said you'll be good at or what your parents want you to be. I want you to do what you want to do. So if that's okay, you want to major in dance, you're going to major in dance, but we're going to find a way to help you be successful in that. So whatever success looks like for you, I'm here to help you achieve that success. I'm not here to push you to other people's standards. I want you to meet your own standards.
Perfect. Perfectly put. That's a PR answer right there. That's good.
I
And
am
then
PR and media trained.
I anyway, I want to transition a little bit into efficacy. This was the second kind of, I like to call them pillars. I honestly don't remember the word that they used, but I like to say that it's the second pillar of effective leadership. And efficacy is, in a way, like kind of your belief that you can lead, or like, you know that you're about that life. So, in a way, it's your confidence in your ability to lead effectively. You believe that you're an influence, a problem solver, or like you can handle challenges. And usually, if someone has high leadership efficacy, then they're, willing to step up to those challenges or willing to be the group leader in a way. So it's kind of like, saying you believe that you can make a difference in a way. But I think that your belief, if I mean I believe that you believe that you can lead, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. Is
You
my
would hope so,
camera on?
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So I
It's just
think I
showing a
think
black square.
this is a good time to talk about your experiences with care, being an ambassador and all that stuff. And oh yeah, tell me about your experience with care. How was that?
It was an absolutely amazing experience. Of course, with everything you do, there's always going to be a frustration here or frustration there. However, I don't think Care missed on anything when it comes to support. Um, they had it all. Uh, and it's funny because the program that I built, I actually modeled it after Care. And in my
Hmm.
interview, they were asking me questions, and everything was like Care this and Care that, and they're like, okay, well, what is something that you think Care didn't do? And I was like, I'll come back to that question. And never came back to it. At the end, they said, hey, you never answered this question. I said, yeah, I've been thinking this whole time. And
Right.
they don't miss.
Yeah.
They don't miss. But nah, overall, it was a great experience. I got to experience it as a student. I got to experience it as an ambassador twice, and I also got to experience it as the assistant summer bridge coordinator.
Nice. So I know, at least from my experience with care, there was a big part of it was mentorship, like especially with my ambassadors, a lot of mentorship. So to you, how is mentorship or being mentored or mentoring other people? It could be black males, it could be students, it could be anybody. But how does that mentorship influence your leader style? Both like you being mentored and you mentoring others.
So from all my mentors, even that's a great question. That's a really good one. So even from all my mentors, I've learned something, and even in all from all my mentees, I've learned something about my leadership as well. I think that that's one of the biggest things as a leader is always learning from your experiences, so you know how to adjust moving forward. Um,
Mhm.
so definitely, I do value the mentor mentee relationship because buddy students they keep you on your toes, man. I had one student I was dealing with, and I'll tell you, this was the most difficult, hard headed kid I've ever worked with. And he was mean spirited, and it was just rough. But he asked me one day, he was like, why do you do what you do? I was like, well, I'm not doing it for the money because I'm not getting paid a lot, but I do it for y'all. Like, I'm literally doing this to be able to have a positive impact on you so that you can be great in life. Nah, you lying. That's cap. I was like, I mean, one day you'll come to understand that that's exactly what I did it for. And then months down the line, he came back to my office and he was like, I understand now. I understand now. Because back then, you should have probably just stopped talking to me. But you made sure to stay on me. You always asking me questions that I hate answering. And now I understand what it is to try to be the best version of me. And I don't have to be so uptight or stuck in my ways. And I don't have to figure it out on my own. I don't have to be mean to people to get my way, or I get it now.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'm trying to tell you. I tried to tell you from the jump. If you listen to me then, you would have been in a different position right now.
Right.
So yeah.
And then on top of that, that kind of answered the next question I was going to ask anyway. But I want you to account for a different moment. But was there a specific moment in your life, in your career, whether that be like your working career, your educational career, anything like that? Was there a specific moment when you realized that you were seen as a leader by others?
Um yeah, when they wouldn't stop leaving they wouldn't leave me alone, man. It was just like, hey Arthur, can you do this? Hey Arthur, we think it'll be great to do this. And I'm like, why y'all want me to do it? Leave me alone. Close my door on your way out. Um but it was a couple of experiences early on where I started to see that people would look to me for guidance and gravitate towards me when they needed advice or they needed help in certain situations. Um, that made me realize, okay, I do have some influence. Let me use it for good instead of being manipulative, as some leaders are, or
Mhm.
any of the other negative words that I can use. Um, I did decide to use it for good and become a change agent in people's lives.
That's good. Good answer. And then, oh, I'm lost. Um, and then one last one, kind of for this section in particular. It's a little bit of a curveball, actually. But what does community mean to you? And yeah, just what does community mean to you?
So essentially, community, simply put, is the people around you that you serve and deal with on a daily basis.
Mhm. Oh,
That
I
was a
like
great
that.
way to yawn. I'm gonna steal that. That was a great way to yawn.
And then the third and final pillar that I like that I want to talk about is capacity, which are your actual skills in the leadership process, or your actual abilities or your capabilities. But these are, all the tools that you use as an effective leader. So like communication, decision making, emotional intelligence, conflict management, XYZ. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But like a leader's capacity kind of grows through practice and through leadership experience and through learning. So, um, with all that said, among your leadership experiences that we've mentioned so far, which of them would you say helped grow your capacity as a leader the most? Which one was the most influential for that?
That is a great question that I have an answer to. Find out on the next episode. Um, an experience that has influenced my capacity as a leader. Uh, I would say it probably was the second time I was a care ambassador.
You did it
Uh,
twice?
I did it twice.
Dang.
Yeah, so I don't ask me why I did it a second time, but I did it a second time. Um, and in that summer was actually the summer I graduated.
Mhm.
I was also taking anatomy too, and I was also taking physics too during that summer as well. And so not only
Dope.
did I have my two hard classes in summer session, I also had a 24-hour job.
What?
Yeah. So but in that experience I was still able to engage and connect with my students. Um I was able to support my peers. I was able to get my work done, like my work task and events and everything.
Hmm.
And I was also able to graduate. That was the biggest thing the whole summer. Anytime somebody asked me something, I was like, "Hey, I'm just trying to graduate, but we need help with the banquet." Okay, what you need? All right. Well, we need help. We need your ideas. I I'm talking about physics right now. What are we talking about? But now that in that experience, I learned to, even though I had my own things going on that I wanted to achieve, I still needed to be part of the team. So being able to give my time selflessly, and my resources and efforts, a lot of that I still bring into my leadership style now. Being
Hmm.
selfless, um, emotional intelligence was a big one. For many reasons, working with that second group of ambassadors was very challenging. A lot of them were young, and it was a lot of teaching right from wrong, being ethical, following rules. Oh man, that summer was tough.
I like that. And then that was a super long segment or talking point that we talked about. But just to kind of close off of that, while all of the pillars that we talked about do work together to make an efficient leader, which of them do you personally think is the most important to be an effective leader? Like I said, they all go together, but which one, like for you, is the most important to be
Okay,
a good
remind me
leader?
the three pillars again. So there's
You have
efficacy.
mhm. You have identity, which is
Hmm.
like who you are as a leader. It's your self understanding, seeing yourself as being able to lead, your values, motives, who you want to become. And then on top of that, you have capacity, which are your actual skills that you have to engage in the leadership process. So, like communication, decision making, EQ, conflict management, strategizing, anything like that. And then efficacy, which is like your belief that you can lead. It's like your confidence in yourself as a leader.
Okay, so I'm not gonna say it's efficacy, and I'm not gonna say it's capacity, because those two things can be built, right?
Okay.
So, like you asked earlier, um, are you born with leadership, or can it be? What was the word?
Are leaders self-made or are they, ooh, the great, are
See?
leaders born or are they made?
Okay, so you can be made efficient. You can learn the skills to have the capacity to become a leader, but your identity, that's not something that's made in a sense. That's something that's within you that you have to do some critical self-reflection to understand your identity and build on it. So I would say that is the most important one.
Okay. My answer would have been not capacity. That's a lie. I think identity. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Because if you're not, wait, am I lying?
No, you're not. Because you got to understand who you are. You got your values.
Exactly. And if you're not true to yourself, then how are you going to be true to other people?
Right.
Exactly.
Ooh, brain blast.
hmm And then this one has almost nothing to do with the topic, but it kind of deals with capacity a little bit. How do you like whenever you're having a moment of self-doubt or burnout, or if you're just like in a slump, how do you handle those moments? Like what do you do to kind of get yourself through that?
Ooh, that's a great one. And I don't think I you asked it differently this time. So
hmm
I know during Care Summer, I think within like the first week, there's that session, the what's your why?
hmm
I don't know if they still do that, but back in my days, we did that every summer, where we sat down with care leadership and the director would share his why, and then students can share their why. Why is it that they are furthering their education? Who are they doing it for? Why are they doing it? So in times where I'm doubting myself or I start to feel burnt out, I just, again, one, pray, of course. Lord, what's going on with me? Please help me figure it out. But two is self-reflection. So reflecting on why is it that I'm doing what I'm doing? What is my goal?
Right.
Yes, I'm feeling like this right now. Okay, what do I need to do to get out of this slump so that I can move forward? All right, boom, self-care. Got to take care of yourself. That's the third thing. Uh, Wine is a great way for self-care if you're 21 and up. Uh, I learned that as soon as I turned 22. But yeah, no, definitely um, prayer, reflection, and self care.
I like that. That's good. I think the self-care one is the most important because
Mm-hmm.
it's like they told us in care, no matter how hard it gets, you can't be leaving your dorm stinky. You gotta keep that self-care up. But yeah, that summarizes that part of that section. Now I want to move on. You may remember it, the true colors. I want to talk about that again. The true colors activity that we did in class had us categorize words, and then it identified us as our type of leader. Whenever we did the activity, I got the color green. I was a green leader. So that kind of meant that I was more of a reserved person, that I would kind of sit back and let other people, say what they got to say, but, make sure it's going properly, moving efficiently, but, not one of those people that feels like they have to take charge of the situation or, be in complete control of the situation. They're okay with other people with sharing the love, So that being said, that being said, let me find it. Um, have you done any activity similar to that? You probably, maybe.
Yeah, so I think I've taken three. So I did the Myers-Briggs test in like 2013, ENTJ. Um, then I did the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and I also just recently did what's the thing called Enneagram, and all three of them, the common theme from all of them was developer.
Okay.
So sometimes you take those things and you're like, that's not me. But then when you actually sit down and read your results and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, that is exactly what I do. Now I
that's
understand why I do what I do. And then another thing with those tests is that you can also use them to understand why other people do the things that you do, or to understand why people do the things that they do. So that way you can kind of understand your interactions a little better with other people. You know that. Yeah, I learned
I
something.
see. I see.
Yeah, I read just a
So
little bit of that.
to kind of build off of that, doesn't build off of that, but how has your professional field, the professional field that you work in, how has that influenced the way that you lead outside of work?
Mm, so I am currently in education, and the way that affects my leadership outside of work is that there's two different ways to understand education. So there's and I'm gonna say this and it's gonna sound very bad. There's the people that care and they're just there to get a check. But then there's the people that are there to impact lives and okay, I'm getting a check with it. Um,
Okay.
so I'm one of those people that's I'm impacting lives and I'm getting a check with it. Um, I value being able to pour into my students, giving them support, sharing my experiences to help them learn. Um, so yeah, outside of work in my regular life, it's the same thing as well. I'm always going to pour into others. I'm always going to provide them the support that they need the way they need it. I can't support you how I think I should be supporting you. I should support you how you want to be supported. So that's definitely how I think I lead outside of the workplace.
I like that. I like that. I like that answer. That was really good. And then to build off of that again, what would you say was a mistake that you made early in your leadership journey? You know, oh, let me finish the question. What was the
Oh,
mistake? Oh, you don't make mistakes. Is that what we're saying?
right, because I can't remember a time I was wrong.
What was a mistake that you made early in your leadership journey, and what did you learn from it?
Um, so a mistake I made early on in my leadership journey was thinking that I can reach everybody, right?
Okay,
So I had to come to terms with, you know, sometimes your personality is not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
right.
Early on, I would try to exhaust myself to try to please different people. And part of that is because of the way I grew up. I'm the last of 12 kids. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Uh, so I just thought that I had to please everybody, or I had to get everyone to like me, or later down the line as a leader, it just was like, all right, not everybody's gonna like you, not everybody's going to mesh with your leadership style, and that's okay.
Mhm.
As long as you're still able to achieve your goals in a respectful manner, you're good.
Okay. I have one more segment. It's about Black men in education, and I just went ahead and chose that one because it's the easiest one to summarize. And there are 6 questions. They're really good questions. So low key, I mean, I kind of have to. But then the ending is just like a wrap up, like you know, the skills you think people need for leadership, like how do you stay connected? I
Yeah, come
like.
on,
All right.
let's knock it out.
So yeah, these have all been really good. I like your answers so far, but now I want to kind of segue into our fourth point. This is what we talked about in our week 8 of the class was Black men in education. So this was a pretty interesting week actually. This is whenever we had like a group of panelists come in.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, they were all Black men in education, whether they were facilitators of education, or if they were currently receiving like their master's degree, a PhD, something like that. But they kind of just came in and talked about their experiences in the education field as Black men or as a minority group in general. But yeah, so starting out with that, I want to ask you, how has your identity as a Black man shaped the way that you approach leadership in educational spaces?
So in educational spaces, I, I must say from an educator standpoint, as a black male in education, my approach is always, especially with black males, is to push them to be successful in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like to them. I'm going to help because one, day I already don't expect you to be there. Two, they're not expecting you to finish. And three, you probably doubt yourself. I'm here to make sure you don't doubt yourself. I'm here to make sure you finish. So those who told you you don't belong here, you can show them that you came, you saw, you conquered. And I forgot what the first one was, but whatever that one is, I'm gonna help you with that one too. Again, it's the support in whatever way, shape, or form that is. I had a student who I had to call at 7 o'clock in the morning every day when I'm driving to work, just
Yo,
so that they could get up and go to class.
that's commitment.
That is support. If that's going to help you be successful, I will do that.
Dang.
I had students who have issues with professors and different things. I'm the type of person, if you tell me you got a problem, I'm not going to send an email. I'm not going to call somebody. No, I'm going to go to your office. Hey, how you doing? My name is Arthur. I'm here with the student. They were telling me there were some concerns, and I was just trying to figure out what we can do to move forward, help the student be successful in your class or whatever it is. Um, what's going on? Let me know.
What going on?
Yeah, what's going on? I'm trying to find out. Help
Yeah.
me. But definitely that's always the goal, is to help others achieve theirs. So within education, as a black male, 9 times out of 10, black male, I'm gonna push you to your limits.
Right. That's good. I like that. And then, ooh, I think this one's good. Can you describe a moment when your cultural or personal identity influenced a leadership decision that you made?
Well, my culture influenced a leadership decision that I made.
Your cultural or personal identity.
Cultural or personal identity influence
Yeah.
a leadership decision.
Yes.
Um, yeah, of course, I can share one of those with you. Um, I mean, I think with a lot of my leadership decisions, my culture plays into that. If you know anything about Haitian people, they are so selfless, down to earth people, unless you piss them off, of course. But definitely, a lot of my leadership decisions have a certain level of finesse to them. You can't just be rash when making decisions. Um, so definitely being able to sit back and be like, okay, what would my dad do? What would my brothers do in this situation? Sit back, reflect, think a little bit, and then make a informed decision on how to move forward in that experience.
Right, right, right. And
That's
then,
something.
ooh, All right. Um, what unique challenges have you faced navigating the education field as a minority, and how have those experiences informed your leadership style?
Um, that is a good one. Ask me that question again.
What unique challenges have you faced navigating the education field as a minority, and how have those experiences informed or influenced your leadership style?
So as a minority, as a black male, and I don't even know it's because I was black or what it was, but navigating, you said a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one challenge that I've had recently in the education field is finding a job. Wow, that was crazy. So little side note, um, my wife is currently doing her residency. Um, she's a surgery resident, excuse me, and she's taking a break to do research. So that required us to move for 2 years. So currently, where I am, is not where I previously was. So of course, I couldn't keep my job, so I had to find a new one. Um, with that, I started my job search and we moved in June. I started my job search probably in, I want to say December of 2023. I didn't get a job until September of 2024. I mean, I had a job, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do. Of course, I got to support my family, so I had to do something.
Right.
Um, However, in the education field, I applied for over 250 jobs between December to August. Uh, and of that 250 plus, because it was more than 250, I probably had 5 interviews. And that in itself was very, very challenging. It did bring about questions of doubt. Am I good enough? Um, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Do I need to pivot from here? Like, what does that even look like? So that was definitely challenging. And yeah, how did that affect my leadership style per se? I wouldn't say that per se. Well, I use that to motivate my students or whoever it is that I'm talking to in whatever situation. Um, More so as a motivator because I didn't give up, and then I started to doubt myself, and then I was like, okay, you're tripping, buddy. You're that guy. Um, you have the experience, you have the education. Um, they told you no. Cool, move on to the next one. Your feet will land somewhere, and you're gonna make the most of that experience. And that's pretty much how I use that experience in leadership. Well, in my leadership style, use it as a motivator. Um, what is my why? My why is to help students reach their goals. And with that, your goal might be way over there, but doesn't mean you can't get to it. You know, it might take you a little while to get there, but your goal is attainable. You just gotta thug it out until you get to it.
Yeah. And then left off with the question, what unique challenges have you faced, blah, blah, blah. To move on from that, I want to ask you. How does seeing or not seeing Black male leaders in education affect your own sense of leadership identity and efficacy? That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. So being able to see yourself within any organization you're in is important, right? That helps add to your sense of belonging. Um, that's one of the great things about being a black male in leadership is being that face that someone can relate to. Um, I can't tell you how many times I've entered a room and it's like a black guy, all right, and then you get all the black males that come up with you and they start cracking jokes, and I'm gonna crack jokes back. I'm like, no, on the real note, what y'all trying to do? What's good?
Yeah.
Y'all want to go to school? What y'all goals? Um, and that really takes me back to when I was recruiting. I was an admissions recruiter, and that role really was one that I enjoyed and resonated with me because when I was attending college fairs,
Hmm.
when I was attending college fairs while I was in high school, um, all the recruiters were white, and
Yeah.
all they would tell you is, "Oh no, you don't have the grades. Try that school. Go over there." Um, and it's like, okay, I, I guess I'm not going to college. I guess what they say about me is right, you know. So definitely being able to give back in that sense was a fulfilling experience for me. Being able to talk to black males at college fairs and tell them like, hey, this may not be the place for you. That may not be the place for you. Over there might not be the place for you. There is a place for you. You just got to find it and
Hmm.
exploit it um, in a good sense. Make it work for you.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
And to kind of build off of that, do you think that you've ever felt pressure, to lead or behave in a certain way because of stereotypes or expectations that are tied to your identity? And if so, how did you manage that?
So one thing that I will always say, and it probably answers your previous question, is one thing you'll never let go of is
Mhm.
telling people to be unapologetically you. If you have to enter a room and pretend to be someone else, that's probably not the right room for you. You should be able to be yourself, share your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns in the way that it affects you, it resonates with you without having to change who you are. Um, that's why the biggest pillar is identity in my regard, right?
Exactly.
You got to know who you are. You can't or you shouldn't be entering into any space and be someone else. You got to be yourself always. You got to stay true to yourself.
Nice. And then the last question for this section, just to kind of sum it up, um, what advice would you offer to young Black men or minority students aspiring to go into or aspiring to have leadership roles in education?
Hey, young black man, aspiring to be in education or want to be a leader, here's my piece of advice: be yourself. Don't change who you are for anybody. All right. And at the same time, make sure that you are always striving to be your best self for those that you are serving. Right. Always serve wholeheartedly. Don't give it 50%. Don't give it 25%. Always give it your 100% so that you know you left nothing on the table and you did your best to impact your community in a positive way.
Perfect. And then now, finally, we're gonna just kind of summarize with a couple more questions. Um, so
All right.
what what skills do you think Black male leaders need in the workplace today?
So I would start with one, emotional intelligence. Got to be able to know. So the way I've always explained emotional intelligence is being able to read the room.
Right.
You got to know the temperature, right? You got to know whether you could come in high. You got to know when it's okay. I got to be chill. That way you can understand the situation or the environment and adapt to it without changing who you are.
Okay. I like that. And I'm gonna ask that.
Oh, I only gave you one. I wrote it down.
True.
Give me one.
Take your time.
No, I'm not taking my time. I'm going to speed up. Um, do. Learn to communicate effectively. So,
Okay.
as a leader, you should know when it is you need to talk, when it is you need to just listen. Um, Leaders should be able to communicate on different levels, whether that's one on one, via phone call, via email, whatever that is. Um, Learn to be effective in your communication and don't beat around the bush. Say what you got to say and keep it pushing. That's two. The third one, I would say there's just a couple things. I'm only gonna give you three. I could either go be a long-term thinker or adaptable. I'm gonna say adaptable, adaptability, if you will be technical. Um, every situation is not the same, so you should be able to, again, adapt to different situations. Right. One of my favorite sayings, and I think you're gonna ask me for a quote,
Hmm.
is you want me to save it or you want me to give it to you right now?
You do it right now.
All right. So don't cry over spilled milk. Right. Everybody knows that saying. Don't cry over spilled milk. But I've added on to that.
Okay.
Right. So the milk is already spilled. So why cry? You know, all you should be doing is figuring out why that milk spilled and what you're gonna do moving forward so the milk don't spill again.
Okay.
Yeah,
You like that?
yeah,
You like
yeah.
that?
And that just speaks to adaptability, it speaks to accountability and responsibility. You got to, ain't no point of dwelling in the past. You got to figure out how to move forward in every situation.
Right. And then one more. Oh, that's a lie. What advice, what advice would you give to future Black male leaders in general? So, you answered it for leadership roles and education, but just in general, like anybody who sat in that classroom with me, what advice do you have for them going forward?
Hey, to all the people sitting in my class, or not my class, people sitting in the class with my nephew Derek, let me tell y'all, if you want to be a leader, be a leader. You want to be a follower, be a follower. But whatever you do it with your whole heart. Now let me think of something different. Now that literally said the same thing with different words. So that's leader in education. Okay, Leo. Oh, hey, black male sitting in class with my nephew Derek. Um, if you want to be a leader, be a leader. Just be confident in your choices and make sure your decisions are not influenced by your emotions. You know, make sure you're making
Mhm.
sound decisions based on evidence, research, whatever that is. Just don't be emotional with your decisions. Make sure you stay solid, 10 toes down, and don't forget who you are.
Love that. And I believe that's gonna conclude us now. We've had plenty of talking. I'm gonna let that